have another keynote for you, and we're going to be hearing from Ilyas, who is the CEO of Quantinuum, and that's a Cambridge University spin-out, building tools for the commercialization of quantum technologies with a focus on quantum software and quantum cybersecurity. And the question is, will quantum be key to the fourth industrial revolution, and what is its potential impact on FinTech? Well, let's find out. Ilyas, welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I was here last year on a similar topic, and in fact the same topic. And the predominant question last year was, is this actually for real? Is this just a joke? Is it similar to fusion? And what can we do about it? Last year, my primary message was that for the first time since the Second World War, governments around the world, any government of note, has a quantum strategy. That quantum strategy is well-funded. Whether it's China, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, you name it, country after country has decided that this single technology is deserving of something which is tantamount to a national strategic policy. The Chinese actually call it that. And a few months ago, the United Kingdom announced a £2.5 billion quantum technology program, which supplements previous programs starting from 2013. Why do I mention this? I mention this that whilst we fiddle and dance and enjoy ourselves and worry about inflation and all the other things, including the latest little gimmick that might be a FinTech gimmick, the world is shifting on its axis. And today what I'll try and do is give you an update on why that statement has merit and why people involved in finance, especially those that are allocating capital or making investment decisions, ought to bring their head out of the sand and look around them rather than getting exuberant about the merest little application that changes nothing fundamentally. My name is Ilyas Khan. I am the founder and the head of strategy and product at Quantinuum. Quantinuum is the largest quantum computing company in the world. It is a result of the merger between Cambridge Quantum, which I founded about 8 years ago, and the Honeywell Quantum Solutions Group, which was spun out of the American aerospace and defense company, Honeywell. My background is that I was the chairman of the Stephen Hawking Foundation, a dear friend of Stephen for many, many years, and Cambridge Quantum was founded on an idea that Stephen actually came up with in about 2013. Prior to that, I was one of the founders of Accelerate Cambridge, which is the deep science accelerator for the university. Now, quick comment on Quantinuum. We are a full-stack integrated quantum computing company. That probably doesn't mean very much at the moment. The problem with all of these things is language. We, for 70 years, are bound to language that relates to classical computing, and that's not surprising. That language emerged over the course of the 50s, 60s, and 70s and accelerated in the last 25 years. So when somebody says to you an operating system, we all kind of intuitively know what that means. The difference between a quantum computer and a classical computer is so profound that that language doesn't map automatically. Nevertheless, a language will emerge, and this is an industrial revolution. It's not just another technology, and for the time being, I think it's all right for us to relate as best we can to the language that has been with us for 70 years. A full stack approach, therefore, means that we build the computer, we have our own fab, we have all the control systems, we of course make the quantum processor, we have the middleware, which is the equivalent of an operating system, and then we have the applications. Ticket, the thing in the middle, is a world-leading software development kit. There are over 3 million people all over the world who are daily using ticket. And this is something which in perhaps a year's time will become 100 million or 200 million, who the hell knows. But this is now exploding, and the reason is that quantum computers actually exist. There are at least 4 in the United Kingdom, and there are at least 100 all over the world. Now, I'm not going to spend any time on a discussion about what a quantum computer is. I am going to be very disciplined and make sure that I leave at least 5 minutes for a discussion about that. These sessions are very short. And so what I am going to do is give you some historical perspective. Quantum mechanics is the laws that govern the universe. They are the only laws that are invariant. Humanity discovered these rules and these laws about 100 years ago. And the story of the phrase quantum computing is a story of our being able to, first of all, understand, and second of all, have the technical capability to deal with the quantum world. The quantum world is the infinitesimal world. It is the world of single atoms, single photons, and single electrons. Human mind is not created to appreciate what this is, but this is the language of nature. This is what determines what we do, what we don't do, what we can do, what we can't do. Classical computers are contrived. Turing thought of a way in which we might compute. People like von Neumann, after him, created an architecture, and we have this Boolean logic, yes, no, binary system maps to that, and we built these edifices on the back of that that do all the things that we are obviously now addicted to, and rightly so. I am certainly not anti-computer, but what they do is a very small fraction of what can be done. A flower does more computationally than any concatenation of superconducting computers. And this is a statement of fact. Aeroplanes fly, we can't. Cars go faster than we can run. Computers add and multiply better than we can. And we use those systems to our advantage. A quantum computer uses the rules of nature. Now, as with all technologies that are fundamental, you need lots of different building blocks. The story of the last 15 years, and particularly the last 5 years, is the building blocks are beginning to emerge. There's an ecosystem. There's at least 400 companies around the world that are startups that are involved in this, probably more, and maybe another 200 or 300 initiatives that are within large organizations. If you are a shareholder in Microsoft or Google, you should read what their CEOs say about quantum. They say that this is the single most important initiative for them. If you are not aware of that, you ought to be. Angela Merkel said 2 years ago, in 2021, that the future of the German state and its people depends upon leadership in quantum. These are not mere trivialities. How does that affect finance is a question I get all the time. Of course, you would be preoccupied with that, even though finance is not the center of the universe. It is important. And those technologies are beginning to emerge. As we speak, there are a dozen, at least, large organizations that are beginning to turn to a quantum technology in looking at proof of concepts that will affect their everyday business. You may or may not be aware of something called Monte Carlo integration. It is critical to the infrastructure of so many things in finance that a list would not be exhaustive. Monte Carlo simulation relies upon a variety of different methodologies, whether it's option pricing all the way through to optimization of portfolios, reporting for regulatory reasons, and things which are called black swans. For the first time ever, a quantum Monte Carlo integration process was announced and revealed by Goldman and also by JP Morgan, and there will be others that follow. This is just one example of where this gets real. The last point I will make is that this sector is now generating revenues. I think this is the I'm old enough to remember the internet, so this is the 1996 moment. The tipping point when things start to become commercial, people start paying money, and goods change hands, and people are held accountable. This year, the likelihood is that there will be some number between $200 and $500 million of revenue in the sector. This will explode next year. My company is going to generate more revenue than the next 8 to 9 companies combined, and our order book is now well in excess of $100 million. A year ago, we had diddly squat. And so this is an example of a tipping point where technologies become commercial. I am going to stop here. I could go on for a long time. Last year, I tried to describe what a quantum computer was. I'd be delighted to address any questions that you have. If you're too shy, I'm easy to access on the internet. Ilyas, my first name, at Quantinuum. I always reply to emails, no matter how trivial they might seem. And you can also, of course, send a note to the company if you're really interested. The UK National Quantum Computing Centre has just been unveiled. And for those of you who are interested in the broader impact on society, could do worse than to spend a few moments reading that. If you thought ChatGPT was a wow, then you should read that, because ChatGPT is a fucking an abacus. And it is brute force, and you all know this, you don't need me to tell you. And we are impressed because we have not seen this before, but actually it is not a language processing model. It has no understanding of meaning or context. It is very clever and very expensive. A quantum computer, for example, will change that paradigm. It will also change the paradigm of things that matter to us, things like carbon sequestration, things like cures for oncologies and Alzheimer's, and of course things which we simply don't know about today. I'll pause there. If there are any questions, wonderful. If not, I shall say thank you. You can clap if you wish. If you have any questions, there are 3 minutes and 22 seconds.
Yes, there is a gentleman there.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Aside from the sort of commercialization aspect of things, how do you see that paradigm shift playing out? What are going to be over the next 12 months, what's going to be the key changes that we see, which start to, as you say, see this shifting from the labs to reality and to practical use cases?
So I think the single biggest impact from a societal standpoint will be in cybersecurity. The first keys that are literally unhackable have been released. When I say unhackable, all of you who are involved in cybersecurity, and even those that don't, will realize that life is about locks and keys. That is what cybersecurity is. And all of these, you use the word paradigms, are involved on randomness. All these algorithms jumble things up so that some adversary can't guess what the key is to open the lock. That's all it is. People make it sound much more complex than that, but it isn't. Most attacks, as you know, are side door attacks, but the fundamental building block of all cybersecurity is the key. A patternless key has now been created using a quantum computer. In fact, the Nobel Prize last year was awarded for something called the Bell test, which is a proof that maximal entropy, which is randomness, is only created by nature, not by any algorithm. We've known that for 80 years. Those keys are in production, and it is very clear that over the next 3 to 4 years, all keys will be patternless. They will not be algorithmically derived. Now, this is incredible, and when I talked about having your head in the sand, the next time somebody tells you they've got a cybersecurity solution, I don't know if you're an investor or a buyer, you better just watch out, because the earth will shift. The second likely impact in the next 12 months is that governments will become more nationalistic in the way in which they manage this process. These are strategic initiatives, and I expect that the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and France and Japan will announce a series of measures, the likes of which perhaps have traced back to the Manhattan Project. So those are two areas. There are many others, but those are two quick things I would mention. Cybersecurity is the most obvious real use case.
More quick one?
Yes, 44 seconds.
Where are the main commercial use cases separately today, and where do you see it being in 5 to 10 years' time?
That's a very big question that I'm unable to answer. I, as a policy, never answer any question to which I can't give an obvious and accurate answer. What I will say, however, is that if you imagine what happened with the telephones in the late 80s and the late 90s, none of us would have imagined this. I think the likelihood is some kid in Rio de Janeiro or Calcutta has probably got something that you and I haven't even imagined. What I will say is that to the extent that our pedestrian minds can imagine change, if you're familiar with Thomas Kuhn and well, Scientific Revolution was his book, and Paradigm Shift comes from that, then you will note that those of us who live in the paradigm can't see outside it. We're controlled by our system. Within this system, what can we anticipate? Well, it's things that matter. So if I go like that and I hurt myself, or I have an injury or a disease, I can imagine what it might take for that to be solved. I suspect that the pharmaceutical market is the one that will be disrupted to the largest extent, because quantum computers allow us to discover drugs and personalize them in ways that frankly, well, not frankly, just have not been possible in human history. These are two things that I would say, but I'm speculating, and so I don't like to speculate. Thank you very much indeed. That's the end of my time. I wish you the best.
Thank you, Ilyas.